I built this fully automated AI day trading app using just Lovable and N8N. All you have to do is type in the stock ticker you want to trade and the app takes care of the rest. It instantly checks the latest prices for that specific stock across 3 different time frames and also scrapes all the latest news related to it from the past 3 days. Then an AI agent processes all of this data, runs it through a set of popular trading indicators and gives you both a short-term and a long-term trade recommendation, whether to long or short, your stop loss level and your take profit target. Plus, it even gives you a fully detailed explanation of the trade, and all that in less than 10 seconds, making it faster and more accurate than the world's best traders. The best part, you can easily sell this app to day traders for thousands of dollars since it helps them take better trades and make significantly more money. And in this video I'm going to show you how you can build this app step by step, so by the end you will have it up and running on your own workspace. So let's get started. Now the first thing that we need to do, guys, is build a front-end interface of our app, and we're going to do that with an app like Lovable, which basically allows us to build very nice looking front-end UIs just by typing simple prompts in this interface over here. So to build a day trader app, I will simply come over here and type build a day trading app. The user should be able to input the ticker symbol of the stock, which, if you don't know, that is the capital letters that are used to refer to each specific stock, and then I say in a simple text prompt. Then the app will go and give him some suggestions about what trade he should make. And then I specifically tell Lovable to don't try to do any of the backend functions because I will do all of them with an N8N. You just focus on building a nice looking UI. Make it dark, modern, with nice sharp colors, just like this example. And now what I will do, guys, is I will come over to Google and search for nice looking UI, find one that I like, let's say I like this one for example, and then all I have to do is to simply come over here and download it, and then come back over to Lovable, come over here and click on attach, upload it, and then simply come over here and click on enter. This way Lovable has a visual example of exactly how I want the app to look like, making it more likely to create a design that I personally like. But while Lovable is building the front-end interface of our app, let's go over to N8N and start building the backend. And now we came over to N8N, and the first thing we need to do is to add in a first step. And our first step is going to be a webhook. And the reason we're adding a webhook, guys, and not any other trigger, is because a webhook allows us to connect the front-end interface we're building right now with Lovable to the backend automation we're going to build in N8N. And the only change we need to make in all of the settings is coming over here in the HTTP method and changing it from get to post, because this is the type of request we're going to be sending over to Lovable in order to send and receive data, because if we leave this on get, this is not actually going to work. So now that we made this change, all we have to do is to come over here and click on top of this link, which actually copies it in our clipboard, and then we come back over to Lovable, which, as you can see, it also finished creating the interface of our app, which I gotta admit does look very good. Now there obviously are improvements that we can make, but let's first connect it over to N8N and then we can improve the way it looks. So to do that, I will simply come over here and say send in all the data over to this webhook URL. And now what I will do, guys, is I will simply come over here and paste in the webhook URL just copied. But before I click on enter, I will also come over here and say make sure the user can only enter a valid ticker symbol. And what a ticker symbol is basically this, guys. Like you can see, this is the ticker symbol for Apple, this is for Tesla, this is for Nvidia. And the reason I set this over here is because we're going to use this to go and look at the current price of this stock. And if we don't actually have the ticker symbol and somebody over here, for example, inputs Apple, we will not be able to do that. So that's why I specifically told Lovable to only accept valid ticker symbols. And now all I will do is I will come over here and click on enter. And now Lovable is going to make these 2 changes, embed the webhook, and make sure we only can input a ticker symbol. And boom, Lovable just finished making the changes, so let's actually test them. Let's say, for example, we want to trade the Tesla stock. So all I have to do is to simply come over here and type in the ticker symbol of Tesla. But then before I come over here and click on get trading insights, what I need to do is come back over to N8N and make sure I click on listen for test event in my webhook. If I don't actually click that, the webhook is not going to expect to receive data, which means that our app will basically not work. So make sure you actually click that when you're testing it, and then you can come back over to Lovable and simply click on get trading insights. The analysis request was sent, And if I come back over to Lovable, we can see that we do have an output over here, which means that we have successfully managed to connect the front-end interface we built in Lovable with the backend automation we're going to build over in N8N. So let me actually pin this data so I do not have to rerun this. And if I actually scroll all the way down here, guys, we can see that we do have the specific stock that we want to trade with, which is Tesla over here. Now you might say, Damian, will I constantly have to come over here and click on listen for test event every time I want to use this app? Well, obviously not, guys. Once your app is ready, you will actually come over here and switch it to the production URL, and you're going to take this URL and give it over to Lovable. So you don't actually have to come over here and click on listen for test event every time. But when you're building the app, it's always best practice to use the test URL. That's why we're using it right now. So after you're done with the webhook, all you have to do is to simply close it. And now what we need to do, guys, is retrieve data about the price of that specific stock. So how are we going to be able to do that? Well, it's pretty simple. We're going to have to come over here and search for an HTTP request. And the reason I'm searching for an HTTP request, guys, is because we're going to use a third-party service to get all this data inside N8N, because there isn't a native N8N node that allows us to get the price of a specific stock. And the third-party service we're going to use is 12data.com, which I will actually leave a link underneath this video so you can immediately go and access it, which is a service that allows us to retrieve information about different stock prices, and also has a completely free plan, so you basically will not have to pay any money. Come over to the website and create an account by clicking on start now, and then after you create your account, you will be brought over here in this interface. Now what you need to do, guys, is come over here to the question mark on the top right corner, simply click on it and then click on API documentation. And this is going to bring you over to this interface. Now this might seem intimidating, but don't worry, it's actually super simple to navigate, guys. Simply scroll all the way down here, and I mean like you need to scroll a bit to where you see time series. Well, we basically have all the information we actually need to configure the service. Now the first thing that you need to do is to come over here in the request example and copy the top part of this link up until it says time series, and then come over here, simply copy it, and then come back over to your HTTP request and simply paste in over here in the URL. Then what you need to do is to come over here and open up the send query parameters, where over here we'll basically configure everything that we want to get from this service. And the first thing you need to do is come over here and type in symbol. And now if you're wondering how I actually came up with this name, it's literally over here in the docs. And that's why the docs are actually your best friend and not your enemy. Because I know a lot of people do not want to go and read the docs. They're like, oh, I cannot read all of this, it's super technical. It's actually super simple, guys. The docs are made for beginners. It's basically the people that made the software telling you exactly how you can use it. And you can see over here, we have an asterisk next to the symbol, which means that it is a required field. And it also tells us all the possible values that it can take, which are basically the sticker of the specific stock. So then over here in the value, what we need to do is turn this into an expression so we can use a dynamic variable, and simply come over here in the webhook, scroll all the way down to where we have the specific stock we want to get information from, which is Tesla for us, and simply taking the schema and drag and drop this over here. So now this knows that we want to get information for Tesla. Now we also need to come over here and add in another parameter, which what this parameter is going to be is this interval parameter over here. And as you can see, this is also a required field where we basically tell it what time series we want to get information from. So in this one, we're actually going to get information for the 1 minute candlesticks, so we know what happens in the very short term. So I will simply come over here, type in interval, and then I will come over here, type in 1 minute. Exactly this is what's typed inside the docs, because if you remember, it also showed us all the potential values we can use. Then we'll come over here and add in another parameter, which is called output size. And again, I found this from the docs, which is a required field. And what that basically is, how many candlesticks you want to retrieve. As a good rule of thumb, I do think 100 candlesticks are good enough. I do not think you need more. And then we'll come over here and add in another parameter. And I think you get the point. How you are able to configure nodes like this is by going over to the docs, seeing what specific parameters you want to configure, and then coming over here and inputting them in your HTTP request. And then the last value I'm going to configure is the API key. So make sure you actually type it exactly as it is here, which is again inside the docs. And then over here in the value, we need to give our specific API key, which we can actually find by going over to the dashboard and navigating over here to the API key section, and then come over here, clicking on reveal, copying your API key, and then coming back over here simply pasting it in inside the value. And now that we did that, we're done configuring this node and we can actually execute it to retrieve all of this information. So now what I will do is I will simply come over here and I will click on execute step, and boom, as you can see, we retrieve a bunch of information over here. For each candlestick, we retrieve the specific date and time, the open, the high, the low, the close, and the volume. And as you can see, we basically have this for 100 candlesticks, which is again exactly what we wanted. Now all we have to do is to simply close this off, and since we have this information for the 1 minute candlestick, we also need to retrieve this information for the 15-minute candlesticks and for the 1-hour candlesticks as well. But now we don't have to really configure this full node because we have already made the bulk of the settings. All we need to do is to simply come over here and copy it, and then simply come over here and paste it in, and we can connect it again to the webhook over here, and we'll simply open it up. And all we have to do is to simply scroll down here and change just the interval. So we'll simply come over here and type in 15 min. Now if I come over here and click on execute step, you can see we also have all the information for the 15 minutes as well. And we are going to do the exact same thing with the 1 hour. I will simply come over here and paste this one in, come over here, connect it to the webhook, and I will simply open it up, scroll all the way down here, and just change the interval to saying 1H, which is 1 hour. And if I come over here and click on execute step, you can see that we do have all the information for the 1 hour as well. And you can do it for more time frames. And let's actually do it for one more, guys, now that I'm thinking about it. Let's also do 1 day one, so we can also do a long-term trade recommendation. And I will come over here, open this up again, scroll down here to where we have the interval, and I will simply delete this and type in 1 day. And if I come over here and click on execute step, you can see that we also have all the information for the days as well. It would be best practice to actually merge all of these 4 time frames so we can use the data later on. So how we're going to do that is by coming over here, searching for a merge node. And what a merge node does, guys, is basically what it says. It allows us to merge all of this data into one. So I will simply come over here the number of inputs. I will change it from 2 over to 4, since we have 4 different inputs over here. Now what I will do is I will bring this over to the middle, and I will simply take each one and bring it over to the merge node and simply connect it. And now if I come over here and I click on execute step, you can see that it's basically brought all the data over here. But if you actually take a look at it, we have 2 runs of 2 different items, and we do not want that. We ideally want all these items in only 1 run. So how we can circumvent that, guys, is by coming over here and adding in an aggregate node, which what an aggregate node does is it will basically allow us to come over here and select all item data into a single list. So what we're basically going to do is we're going to take all of this data and input it inside a single list, which we're going to call data, for example. And then I will come over here and I will click on execute step, and boom, you can see we do have only 1 item this time, which actually includes all the data from all the different time frames that we got, which is exactly what we wanted. But now this is just one part of the automation, so let me bring it up over here, because we also need to take a look at the news about the specific stock to see if something happened that can affect the price in the short term and the long term. And how we're going to be able to do that is by coming over here, clicking on the plus icon and searching for another HTTP request. And we simply have to come bring this over here. We do not want it over there. Let me actually make this look a little bit better, because I simply do not like the way it looks right now. So I will bring this over here, bring this over here, and bring this over here. Alright, much better. And now we have this HTTP request, which is again the HTTP request we're going to use to get the latest news. So we simply have to come over here and connect it over to the webhook. If we open it up, you can see that we do need to input the URL of the service we're going to use. Now you might say, which service are we going to use, Damian? Well, we're going to use newsapi.org, which is a completely free service that allows us to get information from a bunch of news articles. And that's exactly why I picked this one and not any other that is paid. Now the first thing that you have to do is to come over here and create your account. And then after you did that, you need to come over here and navigate over to the documentation, because again, the documentation is going to tell us how we can use the service. And then you need to make sure you're in the searching for news articles tab. And once you click these options, these snippets of code are going to populate for you. What you need to do is to come over here to where you see CURL and simply copy this small snippet of code. And then you need to come back over to N8N, simply come over here and click on import CURL and paste in the snippet of code you just copied. And then you click on import. And what this does, guys, it basically populates almost all the settings for you automatically, so we basically don't have to do the majority of the configuration. Now we do need to change some things, but they're actually very simple to change. So the first thing that we need to change is over here in the queue parameter. You can see that we do have the value over here that is called Apple. Well, we actually need to delete this, come over here on our webhook and take in the specific stock that we want to search for. and simply drag and drop it over here. Then over here in the from category, we basically need to tell it at which specific date the articles that it's going to be searching for were published. So what we have to do over here is simply delete it. Make sure we come over here and we turn this into an expression, and then we're going to input this short snippet of code, which what this basically says, guys, is to retrieve articles from at least 3 days before the current date and time. And if you're wondering how I came up with this, I basically went over to ChatGPT, told it exactly what I want to do. I want to look for the last 3 days and told it to give me JSON code so I can do that in N8N, and it gave me this snippet of code. Then over here in the sort by, we'll leave this on popularity. And over here in the API key, this will probably going to be empty for you. If it is, all you have to do is come back over here in the News API dashboard and simply click on Get API Key. Once you created your account, you should be able to see your API key over here. Now simply come over here and copy it, and then I'm going to come over here and paste it in. So now we have configured everything. All we have to do is to come over here and execute the step, and boom, you can see we got a bunch of information over here from all of these different news articles. You can see article 3, article 5, and we have a bunch of information, but the main part that we actually need is the content of each article, which is inside this schema over here. But you can see that right now this data is very messy and we cannot actually use it as it is, so we need to transform it. So how we're going to be able to do that is by coming over here, clicking on the plus icons and searching for a split out node. And what a split out node does, guys, it basically allows us to come and take in any array. In our example, it's going to be the articles array. Simply drag and drop it over here. Make sure we leave this on no other fields included. Then if we come and click on execute step, you can see that this basically inputs all of these items inside one schema, so we can actually use them later on when we're going to give them to our AI agent to generate the recommendations for us. This is not mandatory, but I would strongly advise you to do that, is to not give this immediately to an AI agent. Because remember, we're also going to give all of this information to an AI agent, so the chance of it being overwhelmed and giving us a bad result are pretty high if we give it access to all of this data. So to make the life of the AI agent easier, what would be ideal to do is to simply make a separate analysis from these articles inside a separate LLM model. So that is exactly what I'm going to do right now. I'll simply come over here, add in an LLM chain. And the reason I'm adding in an LLM chain is because I do want to use an output parser, and you will see why in a bit. But now let's actually first configure this. I will come over here and change this from connect to set trigger node to define below, and then over here in the user message, let me actually turn this into an expression and open it up so you guys can take a better look at it. I will actually come over here and type: you are a highly intelligent and accurate sentiment analyzer specializing in stock markets. Analyze the sentiment of the provided text using a two-part approach. A short-term sentiment analysis, where I basically give it some instructions over here. You can pause the video and read it if you want, but if you want all these instructions ready for you, plus the whole automation ready, what you can do is click the link in the description and join my school community, where I have the template for this automation and many more content inside there. So if you're interested in that, make sure you check it out. I just wanted to point it out. But either way, we're going to go over this so you guys can understand. So over here I basically give it some short-term sentiment. You can pause the video and read it if you want. Also over here I tell it to create a long-term sentiment, and again I give it some instructions. And then I say output only one short-term analysis and one long-term analysis. Do one round for all of these articles and add only one thing. And then I say here are the articles. And what we can do over here, guys, is we could like take the schema, for example, and drag and drop it over here so it actually has access to the content. But that will not be ideal. If you see over here, we do have 24 items, which means that this basic LLM chain is going to run 24 times, which is not what we want. We want it to run only once. So how we're going to circumvent that is by closing this off, coming over here and adding another node in between those two, which is going to be an aggregate node. And again, we will simply come over here and change this to all item data into a single list. Let's name this data 2, for example. And if I come over here and click on execute step, you can see that this basically inputs all this data inside one item. Which means that if we actually give this data now to our LLM, it's going to output only one result, and it's not going to output a different result for each one of these articles. So I think you understand now why we did that. Now if I actually open this up, what I need to do is to simply come over here, open this up, and I will come over here, delete this JSON content, simply take in the data to array and drag and drop it over here. But you can see that this cannot actually see the data, it just sees a bunch of objects because it is inside an array. Now how we can circumvent that is by coming over here and typing JSON in all caps, dot, and then we type in stringify, then we simply need to delete the space over here, add in a bracket, and then we need to come over here and add in another bracket. And you can see now this can actually take a look at the full data that we have inside over here. So you can actually pause the video and read this if you want. This is the exact text. You could say, oh, this is code, but you can actually tell ChatGPT what you want to do, and it will basically give you this automatically, so you don't really have to learn how to type it yourself. But now that we did that, we actually need to close this off and come over here and add in an LLM model, because we have not added any. I will personally go with ChatGPT, so I'll simply select it over here. Now the first thing you need to do is to come over here and select your credentials. Now if you do not have credentials, what you need to do is to come over here, click on create new credentials, and over here you need to input your API key. Now how you can find your API key is by going to platform/openai/API keys. I will leave a link for it in the description below, and then come over here and click on create new secret key. You need to give it a name. I will name it stock, for example, and I will click on create new secret key, and boom, this is our new API key. All we have to do is to come over here and copy it, come back over here and simply paste it in the API key tab, and then we click on save, and boom, as you can see, the credentials were successfully created. So if I actually come and close this off, I can actually come over here and select my credentials now. I will leave it on GPT 4.1 mini. So now if I actually close this off, I need to open up my LLM chain one final time, because as I said before, we do want to use an output parser so we don't get a messy text response, and we actually get the data very nicely structured exactly as we want. So to do that, I will simply come over here and open up the required specific output format, and I will make sure I click on add an output parser. Now I will select structured output parser, and this is the part where everyone loses their mind. Whoa, Damian, this is code. This is too technical. I don't know how to code. I cannot actually do this. Well guys, do not worry. You will not have to write any code yourself. All you have to do is to simply come over to ChatGPT and simply say, I want to get a short-term analysis and a long-term analysis about stock articles. Give me the JSON for this output, and click on enter. And now what ChatGPT will do is it will basically give you the code for the output parser, and simply copy the result it just gave you, and then come and paste it over here. So now if I actually close this off and I come over here and I click on execute step, you can see that this has started analyzing all the articles, and it's actually going to give us two outputs. And if I actually open this up, you can see that we have a short-term analysis and a long-term analysis over here, which is again exactly what we wanted. So now what we need to do, since we have the analysis from the articles and we also have all the data from the prices, is we need to give all of this data into an AI agent so it can actually take it, analyze it with some instructions that we give it, and then tell us which trade we should make. So to do that, we first need to merge the data. So I will simply come over here and add in another merge node, and this time the number of inputs is going to be 2. So now we're simply taking the data from here and bring it over to input number 1, and then taking the data from here and bring it over to input number 2. And now if I actually come over here and I execute the step, you can see that this finished executing and it successfully merged the data, but we do have 2 items over here, and again we only want 1. So to circumvent that, we're going to do exactly the same thing we did before. We're going to add in an aggregate node, and we're going to change this over to all item data, and let's name this data all, for example, and I will come over here and I will click on execute step, and boom, you can see we do have all of the data inside all in one item right now, which means that it's time to come over here and add in our AI agent. So we'll simply come over here and select AI agent, and the first thing that we need to do is to come over here and change this from connect to chat trigger node to define below, which opens up the user message. So let me actually turn this into an expression and open it up so you guys can read it. What I have to do is come over here and type in the user message, which is going to be this. Now do not get intimidated by this. I know this is kind of long, but do not worry, we're going to go over it. Again, if you do not want to write this, link in the description below to download the whole template. I first started saying this is for, I will close the aggregate node, I will open up the webhook, I will scroll all the way down here to find the specific stock that we're doing this whole analysis for, and I will simply drag and drop it over here. Then I say this is the analysis that I got from scraping the articles. What I need to do, guys, is come over here to where I have the analysis from the articles, which is in the data all one parameter, because if you remember, we inputted all inside one item with the aggregate node. But this is the analysis that I have from the articles, and I will simply take this and drag and drop this over here, so it has access to that. But again, you can see that it cannot actually read the data because it is inside an object. So we will come over here and type in the exact same thing. JSON.stringify. We're going to delete the space over here, add in a bracket, and then come over here in the end and add in another bracket. And boom, now it has access to all this information. And then I say, here is all the technical data. And what I will do is I will come taking the first object that we have over here, which is the data from the candlesticks, from all the prices inside the candlesticks, drag and drop it over here, and I will do exactly the same thing. I will type in JSON .stringify, I will delete the space, bracket here and another bracket over here, and boom, if I scroll down here you can see that it also has access to all of this data. And then I basically explain exactly what this data is. I say this is an injection array where each element is a candlestick data object for a stock. Each object has the following structure: time, candles, an array of values in the following order: open time, open, high, low, close, volume, close, etc, etc. Again, you can pause and read this if you want. You can also screenshot this. You can give it to ChatGPT, so it actually gives you the exact same text, so you can then copy and paste it and use it. And then I'd say, please perform the following steps: group the data, group the candlestick objects by time frame into 4 groups. Then I give the groups over here, and then I say, analyze the data in detail. Do a short-term analysis, use the 15-minute candles and do all of this over here. And then I say, do long-term analysis, use the 1-day candles, and you can get some insights from the 1-hour candles as well. And then I say, give me some actionable recommendations. I say, what action should I do: buy, sell or hold, the entry price, the stop loss level and the take profit level. Then I also give it some instructions about how it should come up with those. Again, you can pause and read this if you want. And then I tell it the specific output format that I want. Short term, I want the action, entry price, stop loss, take profit and rationale, primary signals, lagging indicators and sentiment analysis, since I want a pretty detailed explanation. And then I say the exact same things for the long term. And now guys that we're done with this prompt, you can screenshot this, give it over to ChatGPT, it's going to give you the text. I will come over here and close this off, and I will come over here and add in and chat LM model because I have not added any. So I will come over here and select OpenAI chat model. Again, I will select my credentials and I will leave this on GPT 4.1 mini, and that is important to use a very fast model like that, because if you use a model like O3, the AI agent is actually going to take up way too much time to think, and it's not actually going to work because it's going to stop because it exceeded the time frame. So make sure you choose a fast model like GPT 4.1 mini or any other fast model, and then you can simply come and click off here. Now what I will do guys is I will also come over here in the tools and add in a think tool. And what a think tool does guys is it basically tells the AI agent to pause a little bit and think a little bit more about the problem so it can give you a better solution. It's pretty standard tool to use in your AI agents. If I'm gonna be honest, I would advise you to always use it because they do tend to give you better results when you do. And then what I will do is I will simply open this up and require a specific output format, because I want the data to be nicely structured and not all in one huge block of text. And again, I will come over here and add in an output parser. Open up my AI agent. Simply scroll all the way down here to where I have told it basically the specific output format. I will simply take it, copy it, and I can actually ask the AI assistant as well. I can say, give me the JSON for an output like this, and simply paste in what I just copied and click on enter. And boom, it just gave me the JSON code. So I simply will come over here and copy this. Let me close this off as well. And I will then come over here and simply paste it in over here. Alright, and now we're basically done with everything that we needed with our AI agent. So now the only thing that is left is to simply execute it to see what result we're going to get. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I will execute it over here. As you can see, he started running. It's actually taking all this data and thinking about what recommendations it should give us. And boom guys, it just finished generating. And if I actually open this up to take a look at the output, we can see that we do in fact have a very nice output. We have the action we need to take, which is hold neutral, the entry range, the node, the stop loss, the take profit, some primary signals over here, some sentiment analysis as well, and we have the exact same things with a long-term position, but this time is to actually buy. And at the end we also have a summary analysis, which looks very good guys. So you can imagine how powerful this would be if an actual day trader could have this. Even using it as a like second opinion on the trades that he's making would be very useful to him. But we're not done yet guys, because we have the answer over here in our AI agent, but we need to return it back in our lovable interface. And how we're going to be able to do that is by using a respond to webhook node. And the only thing we have to do over here is to change this from first incoming item to all incoming items, since we want to return all this data back into Lovable. But before I come over here and click on execute step, what I need to do is to close this off and come over here in my initial webhook, open it up, and then I need to come over here in the response setting and change this from immediately to using a respond to webhook node. Because if we do not change this, we will not be able to use the respond to webhook node. Now do not ask me why we have to configure this inside the webhook and not inside the respond to webhook node. I have no idea guys, you should honestly ask N8N that. But that is how it is, so make sure you actually make this change. But now again, if I actually open this up and I come over here and click on execute step, nothing is going to happen in our Lovable interface. And that's not because it's Lovable's fault, neither it is N8N's fault. That is because we simply have not told Lovable that it needs to expect data to come from N8N, and it hasn't created any section where it can display this data. So first, before we actually send the data back to it, we need to tell it that it needs to expect data and to create this brand new section. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I said make sure you expect to receive data from a web URL and create a brand new section where you can display it. And I also said this section should match the app's theme. And I will click on enter. And now Lovable is going to go and create this brand new section. And once we click on the respond to web node, it will actually be able to take in this data and display it over here in our app's interface. And boom guys, Lovable just finished making the changes. So now if I come back over to N8N and I actually execute the step, you can see that we do have an output over here, which means that the webhook has successfully managed to send the data back over in our Lovable interface. And boom guys, if I come back over in my Lovable interface, I can see the full analysis here. I can see exactly what I need to do, the current price, the target price, the risk level, and a bunch of more information as you can see. And I can also take a look at the short-term trade that I need to do, which is to hold, and I can also take a look at the long-term outlook, which is to buy, with all of this information over here and the rationale for every one of these decisions underneath them. So I think you can see how valuable an app like this would be to a day trader that does this for a living. And you could easily sell this to him for thousands of dollars since it would give him so much value. Now if you want to learn the best ways you can sell apps like this, you can click the link in the description and join my school community, where if you navigate over to the classroom, I have 4 courses teaching you exactly how you can do that. How you can sell automations in Upwork, where I basically tell you how you can do it step by step. I tell you the strategy you should follow, how you set up your profile, how you can find the best jobs, how you should apply to them to get hired, how to onboard clients, and how to actually deliver the work. And I do the exact same thing in the cold email course over here. Plus I also show you the 2 highest leverage ways you can sell automations, which I see nobody talking about in this space. Like everyone talks about using Upwork and cold email, but nobody talks about building an audience on YouTube and on Instagram and then leveraging this audience to sell automations to. Because with this way, you're not the one that is chasing the clients are actually coming to you and asking you to build them automations, which means that you can sell them for a premium price since you already have social proof, and it's infinitely more scalable because it's not tied up to your time. The more you grow in these platforms, the more clients you're going to get, and you will reach one point where you simply cannot fulfill all the work that you have, and you will have to hire other people, and you will end up being just the person that makes the content, and you have other people actually do the automations. So I'll show you exactly how you can do that in these 2 courses, which are actually very detailed. Like if I open up the YouTube course, like I show you basically everything you need to know about YouTube. And this is not like a short course guys, this is almost 3-hour course in which I go in depth on the strategy you need to follow, how to come up with video ideas, titles, thumbnails, the video structure you should do, how to hire a team, and a bunch of other more useful things. And I do the exact same with Instagram. And I'm actually very knowledgeable in the space because I have worked as a YouTube strategist with a lot of YouTubers in the AI space, so I know exactly how you grow this niche. And that's exactly what I show you how to do in these 2 courses. But we're not done yet, because I also have a full AI SaaS roadmap course in which I show you exactly the perfect strategy you need to follow to build your own AI SaaS, from coming up with the right idea to actually marketing it to get paid users and then scaling it. And just to prove that this strategy works, I'm actually starting a brand new project that is the Build a $1 Million SaaS series, in which I will try to build a $1 million SaaS by following this exact roadmap over here, and I will document the whole process inside the community. And this is not a side project that I'm doing just for the community, this is an actual business that I have wanted to start for a very long time, and I just thought about document the whole process inside here as well. Plus you will also get access to all the assets in all of my videos, including this one. So all you have to do is open up the assets tab, simply find the video you want. Let's say for example I wanted the YouTube video generator app. All I would have to do is come over here, click on the JSON file, click on download, and then come over to N8N, click on these 3 dots on the top, click on import from file, simply upload the file, and the whole automation will populate for you automatically along with all the settings we have configured, so you will basically not have to build anything. So if you want access to this, along with a community of more than 150 people that are interested in AI and most importantly making money with it, click the link in the description and come and check out my school community, and I will be waiting for you inside. But now YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this video in which I built a $1 million app using just Lovable and N8N. So make sure you go and check that out next, and I will see you over there.